Jazzcast Pros.
One thing that people want from business is overnight success. They want to all of a sudden have this idea and have it bring in a ton of money and do all of the things for them and have this like incredible success or abundance. And that's seen nowhere else in nature. If you know me and things that I enjoy, you know I'm also a big gardener. I actually love the metaphors of creating a garden and building a business. And so because we are in this gorgeous springtime, I thought I would sit down and record an episode about what the spring garden can teach us about building a business. Spring shows us to slow down, enjoy the precious present. Growth doesn't have to be rush. Abundance doesn't have to happen overnight. And just taking care and doing the things that you know you need to do to live in the season that you're in that moment. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Welcome to High Vibe Table Talks, the podcast to help you, the current or aspiring solopreneur, navigate the messy middle so you can make both an income and an impact. Hi, I'm Rashawn, and I love creating safe spaces for women to be courageous in their dreams. After spending a decade working in sales for a startup and talking with hundreds of other women entrepreneurs, I know it can be lonely, but you can do this. Quick story, I had the most lovely time with my daughter last night. I start most of my vegetable garden from seeds. If you're following me on Instagram at High Vibe Cowork, you saw some of those in my story last night. My tomato and pepper seeds are really growing. I was able to plant some cucumber seeds last night, some different flowers, some melons. Typically, I don't start cucumbers or melons inside because they don't love having their roots disturbed. But last year, I had a terrible time getting any cucumber started at all because I guess that what do you call them? I call them potato bugs. Some people call them roly-polies. My daughter came home and called them something else in something she was reading the other day. Tilly something, I don't know, doesn't matter. But I guess that they really like cucumber seedlings, and I think they destroyed a lot of my cucumbers last year. So anyways, I'm trying something new, just like we do in business. It didn't work this way, so I'm going to try it a different way and see what happens. But I really got to get my hands dirty and start some more seeds and make sure all mine were watered. And some of my tomato seeds are really like getting big. And it just was like really exciting. And what is so fun this time of year is like picturing what it will be when we are in abundance. So in August, all of the fun things that I'm going to be able to do with the overflow of vegetable produce. And so actually last night for dinner, I got like on the vine tomatoes from the grocery store, and I made like a fresh sauce with a little bit of cream and like a vodka sauce. And it was delicious. And I'm so excited to like have fresh produce to do that. It was just this like really lovely time. And like, I'm not reaping the benefits of it right now, but I'm also like able to walk around my property, and we have all of these flowers growing. We have daffodils and these other purple flowers. I don't even know what they are. And we have a couple trees that are starting to bloom. And it just is this like really beautiful time that I think we can take so much from. And so let's get into lesson 1. Embracing the season that you're currently in. Spring is this like slow awakening. It's this slowly uncovering. And if you're in certain climates, like we get multiple false spring. So it's like, oh, look, it's 75 and gorgeous out. And then we had, I don't even know how many snowstorms here in April. And so it's not this automatic shift from winter to really nice every day. And so it's this slow process of coming out from your kind of winter burial. Also, progress isn't always like above the surface. You know, a lot of what my seedlings are doing right now is creating root systems, and they start in the dark, and they're slowly starting to come up to the surface, but they're also building a deep root system so that they can take in all of their nutrients. And that is way before we ever see leaves, before we see blooms. I mean, I'm not going to have a tomato from my garden until probably the beginning of August. But it's doing a lot of the hard work first. It's doing a lot of the hard work right now. In my Sales Prospecting Simplified course, the first module is mindset. It's getting our mind right. It's doing the prep work. It's getting systems, habits, rituals, routines, all the things that happen in our brain set so that we can go out and do the hard work before we get into the abundance of, a countertop full of tomatoes and cucumbers and peppers and squash. And remember that part of the journey, that part of the process, like other people don't see it and there may not be like tangible evidence, that doesn't make it any less important. And so really leaning into that season and making sure that during your spring season, you're building those foundational tools for yourself because they will help keep you strong and sturdy in the future. One of the things that we have to do with our seedlings is I joke that like I go in and pet them. I actually went to like a farmer's market for seeds last spring. And when I went in there, I was like petting all of them. She was like, "Oh my God, you pet your plants too?" And I was like, "I do." And the reason that you do that is because once you put your plants outside and they have wind, they have rain, they have much harsher conditions than they have right now. I'm pointing, if you can see, into where I have them, inside in a window, is that if you just throw them outside, they're not strong enough to sustain these winds. And so actually when you like brush them or pet them, you're breaking some of their internal fibers that they then build up and make stronger. Just like when you exercise, when you're working your muscles, you're tearing those fibers so they build back together and they build stronger every time they come back together. It's the same with these plants. It's the same with the systems that you're building in your business. You may think you want to do business X and then a big storm hits and you're like, well, that sucked. And so you build it back stronger, differently, more focused on having those foundations and building it in a way that you want it to be built. And so having those storms early on when you're in kind of the early parts of your business really help so that when you can weather different storms as you get further on. So the spring season of your business is super important. The second part that I wanted to talk about is slowness being a strategy. And this is twofold. I coach, everything seems to like interrelate, but I was coaching this past week and there's this one girl on the team and she's really, really coming along as a player and she's right-handed and we really forced them to use both hands. And she was trying to go as fast as she could on her with her left hand than she does with her right hand. And I said, I want you to slow everything down. You're very strong at your right hand, and so you can go at a certain speed. I want you to do it right with your left hand first. Go slow, take your time, making sure all of your body movements are doing it the right way. Then we will speed it up. It's the same with business. Don't do everything at hyper speed and not sitting back and doing it the right way. You have to kind of dive in and see what works. And as someone with ADHD, I really like to I'm just going to dive head first. But remember that you have to sometimes do things at a speed so you can get some feedback. You can nurture your audience. You can lay the groundwork. It doesn't have to be, I'm going to pour all of this into this one thing. And if I don't hear feedback in the next 24 hours, then I'm a complete failure. Slow is a strategy. Slow is an acceptable speed at which to do things. Slow is supportive. Slow can be self-care. I talk about being the relaxed entrepreneur, and part of that is doing things in a slow, intentional manner. And And so don't feel like, I was recording a podcast earlier, and there's so many times where we think, if I just do all the things, if I just work harder, then I'll get to where I want to be faster. And A, that's not true. And B, is that fun? Like, is that enjoyable? Is that because then once you reach that level of success, then how do you turn it off? Are you ready to turn it off? Faster isn't always the answer. And I'm saying this as someone who does like to move at a speed that's not always the best. So I'm talking to you, the listener, and I'm also talking to myself. Again, this is another just reminder that the lessons happen over and over and over again. And kind of the last part that I'm going to talk about is that the garden blooms in the way that it wants to, in the time that it wants to, in the time that it needs to. It wants to grow. Like, I have so many things that grow in my garden every year that I planted previously, and I just let like fruit fall off, and those seeds create plants the next year. And so the garden wants to grow. Seeds want to grow. That is just nature. But I'm not going to love my tomato plants into producing any faster than they are meant to. I have to care for it in the way that I have to care for it. I have to show up for it consistently, but it's going to bloom when it's going to bloom. Kind of back to, if I just work harder and faster, I'll get to where I want to be. I can't care for and tend to my tomato plants and all of a sudden get tomatoes July 1st. That's just not how nature works. And so we have to detach ourselves from the hustle culture and from urgency and this push, 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 go, 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 because it's not going to help us. It's not going to help our business. And really focusing on the small things that we can do well. So, did you show up to your prospecting power hours this week? Did you get to all your emails? Did you show up on social media? Did you send those outreach emails? Same thing with the garden. Did you show up to your garden? I have a poster from the YouTube channel that I follow a lot talking about gardening, Roots and Refuge, and it's on the mirror in our bedroom, and it says the best medicine for a garden is a present gardener. And that is so true. You have to just be in it, be there, be ready to tend to it, ready to care for it. Same thing with your business. You can't be there all the time for it to grow faster, but if you never show up to it, it's not going to be very successful. And so showing up consistently, that's what you have control over. You don't have control over how fast your plants grow. You don't have control over the pests that you get. You don't have control over how many weeds are in your garden. You can put boundaries. You can put weed barrier down. You can, create a watering system that goes off without you. But you still need to show up to it. You still need to show up to your business. You still need to be present. And I'm not saying you need to be a perfect business owner. You can't be a perfect gardener. There's going to be things that happen. There's going to be storms. There's going to be bugs and pests and plants that die and prospects that never come to fruition and people that say no. But did you show up? And if you did, then celebrate that. And shifting that as abundance in your business. You showed up. You had the space and capacity show up. And that should be applauded. I would love for you to take some time to reflect on what does spring look like in your business right now? What are you slowly moving into? How are you celebrating slowness and stillness and slow growth in your business? How are you celebrating abundance that isn't, a counter full of tomatoes? It's little baby seedlings that you get to go and pet while you're drinking your morning coffee. What does that look like for you? And I would also urge you to lean into your own body rhythms. And what does slowness and stillness look like for you in this season? How can you listen to your body? Because your body is just another reflection of nature. And what kind of season or cycle is your body in? And how can you nurture and tend to your body and show it some love, just like you show your business love, just like you show your garden love, just like you show Your mind, love, all of those things need nurturing and tending to. And how can you do a little bit of that today and really detach yourself from the hustle culture, the go, go, go? How can you show up as spring in your business, in your life today? And as I was kind of chatting with ChatGPT about this episode and what, some highlights would be, it had this as a takeaway, and I really liked it. And it says, you don't have to bloom overnight to be on the right path. You just have to keep tending. And remember that every overnight success that you see started as a little baby seed that got a lot of tending to. They didn't just plant it yesterday. It lived in the dark for a long while. It took a long time to build its roots. And if that's a season that you're in, then you're doing a great job. Yesterday, actually, I was exhausted yesterday, and I really wanted a bed rot day yesterday. But I said, nope, I'm not going to bed rot today, but I'm going to take some small steps. They're going to be micro, they're going to be tiny, they're going to be invisible to a lot of other people, but I am still going to show up. And I had low spoons, but I was able to make the most out of the spoons that I did have. So if you're in that sort of season, I feel you, I understand you, and you're doing a great job. And remember, until next time, the big dreams and small steps will transform your life.